The king lay awake that night, his heart pounding and his mind racing. A strange, unsettling dream had shaken him to his core. What did it mean? Nebuchadnezzar, the mighty king of Babylon, couldn't rest. His empire was vast, his power unmatched, yet this dream, so vivid and terrifying, filled him with fear. King Nebuchadnezzar was the ruler of one of the greatest empires in history, Babylon. He had conquered many lands, built massive palaces, and created wonders, including the famous Hanging Gardens. But despite his strength and wealth, there was something that troubled him deeply. A dream, a vision in the night, seemed to predict something bad. It felt like a warning, and the king knew he needed answers. The next morning, Nebuchadnezzar called for his wise men. They were experts in many things: magic, astrology, and interpreting dreams. He ordered them to come quickly and told them he had seen a terrible dream. But there was a catch. Nebuchadnezzar did not want to tell them what the dream was. Instead, he challenged them, saying, "Tell me what I dreamed, and then explain it to me. If you cannot, I will have you killed." The wise men were terrified. They knew no one could tell someone's dream without being told first. But Nebuchadnezzar was furious. He refused to listen to their excuses and insisted that if they were truly wise, they should know both the dream and its meaning. The king's anger grew, and he ordered the execution of all the wise men in Babylon. Among those who were to be killed was a young man named Daniel. Daniel was a Hebrew, taken as a captive from his homeland when Babylon conquered Israel. He was one of the young men chosen for special training in the king's court, along with his 3 friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were known for their wisdom and faith in God, and Daniel had gained the king's favor. But now, Daniel and his friends were in danger because of the king's terrible dream. When Daniel heard about the king's command, he asked the king for time to pray. He knew that only God could reveal the meaning of the dream. That night, Daniel prayed with his friends, asking God to show him the dream and its meaning. God heard Daniel's prayer and answered it. That very night, God gave Daniel a vision of the dream. When Daniel awoke, he was filled with awe. He knew the dream came from God, and he quickly went to the king's palace. When Daniel stood before the king, Nebuchadnezzar asked, "Are you able to tell me what I dreamed and what it means?" Daniel replied, "No wise man can do this, but there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. He has shown me your dream, and I will tell you what it means." Daniel explained the king's dream to him. Nebuchadnezzar had seen a giant statue in his dream. The statue had a head made of gold, a chest and arms of silver, a belly and thighs of bronze, and legs of iron. Its feet were made of a mixture of iron and clay. As the king looked at the statue, a stone was cut out, not by human hands, and it struck the statue, breaking it into pieces. The stone grew bigger and bigger until it became a mountain that filled the whole earth. Daniel told the king, "The statue represents 4 kingdoms. The head of gold represents your kingdom of Babylon. It is the greatest of all. After you, another kingdom will rise, and it will be weaker, like the silver. Then a 3rd kingdom will come, represented by bronze, and it will rule over many lands. After that, a 4th kingdom will come, strong like iron, but it will be divided, like the feet of iron and clay. Finally, the stone that destroyed the statue represents God's eternal kingdom. It will crush all the kingdoms and will last forever." Nebuchadnezzar was amazed. The dream was exactly as Daniel had explained, and the king knew that only a true God could reveal such a mystery. The king praised God and honored Daniel. He also promoted Daniel to a high position in the kingdom, giving him great wealth and power. Daniel's 3 friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, were also honored and placed in important positions. But Nebuchadnezzar's troubles were far from over. Though he had acknowledged the power of God, his pride began to grow. One day, he built a massive golden statue, about 90 feet tall, and commanded all the people in his kingdom to bow down and worship it. Anyone who refused would be thrown into a fiery furnace. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the 3 friends of Daniel, refused to bow down to the golden statue. They knew that only God deserved their worship. When the king heard that they had disobeyed his command, he became furious. He ordered that the 3 men be thrown into the furnace. The furnace was so hot that the soldiers who threw the men into it were burned alive. But when the king looked into the furnace, he was shocked. Instead of seeing 3 men burning, he saw 4 figures walking around in the flames. The 4th figure looked like a divine being, perhaps an angel sent by God to protect them. Nebuchadnezzar called the men out of the furnace, and when they stepped out, they were completely unharmed. Not a hair on their heads was singed, and their clothes were not even scorched. The king was amazed and praised the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He declared that anyone who spoke against their God would be punished. However, despite this, Nebuchadnezzar's pride continued to grow. One day, he stood on the roof of his palace and looked out over the city of Babylon. He said, "Is this not the great Babylon that I have built with my own power and for my own glory?" At that moment, a voice from heaven spoke, saying, "Your kingdom will be taken from you. You will live like an animal, eating grass, until you acknowledge that God is the ruler of all." Immediately, Nebuchadnezzar was struck with madness. He was driven from his palace and lived in the fields, eating grass like cattle. His hair grew long like eagle feathers, and his nails became like the claws of a bird. For 7 years, he lived this way until one day, his mind returned to him. Nebuchadnezzar looked up to heaven and praised God, acknowledging that he alone is the ruler of all kingdoms. His sanity was restored, and the king returned to his throne. He ruled wisely and humbly, knowing that all power belongs to God. King Nebuchadnezzar learned a powerful lesson about pride and humility. Despite his greatness, he had been humbled by God's power. He understood that no kingdom lasts forever, and only God's kingdom is eternal.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.